Chicago, city of broad shoulders, as penned by Carl Sandburg. From north to south, over 26 miles of lakefront, ethnic enclaves, backroom politicking, colorful festivals, noisy transports, coveted parkland, oh, and did we fail to mention? Iconic architecture. Since rising from the ashes of its great fire in 1871, this self-proclaimed second city has been anything but, as it has held the titles of Hog Butcher to the World, world's busiest airport, birthplace of the modern skyscraper, and innovator of architectural design and technology. Yet Chicago is not one to rest on its laurels. Ever restless, this city continues to reinvent itself decade after decade, not content until it's proudly produced and packaged some new and shiny innovation to revolutionize an industry. The dawn of the 21st century has witnessed a sweeping trend impacting almost every aspect of our lives, the sustainability or green movement. Because of its environmental and cost-saving implications, municipalities across the nation have adopted philosophies and practices to take full advantage of this emerging technology. Although Chicago leads the nation in the number of green roofs and LEED-certified buildings, it has a way to go before it can be called the greenest city in the U.S. Ranked number 9 on the list of America's greenest cities, Chicago will have to work hard to become number 1. Nevertheless, Chicago, which has rarely retreated in the face of historic opportunity, seems to be setting its sights on this significant designation. Make no mistake, it will not be something haphazardly approached or attained. As 19th century architect and planner Daniel Burnham once said, "Make no small plans, they have no magic to stir men's souls." Yet to achieve leadership status within the green industry necessitates concerted effort and cooperation from more than just a local government, but also the public and private sectors.
Through Chicago's efforts in the green movement, we'll discover what it means to go green in the design industry. What are the advantages? What are the issues? How is it going to be implemented? And what does the future portend for the green industry in Chicago?
Here at Chicago Architecture Today, we will take a broad look at sustainable design and its applications within diverse sectors of Chicago's urban communities. With so many segments of our society seemingly trying to one-up each other in touting environmental responsibility, how much does the average person really know about this rapidly growing trend?
Sustainability,
what do you mean? I guess it's important, I guess. I don't know why, but it is.
Oh, green.
Okay, I've heard of like white roofing and like plants on top of the roofing and like just recycling water and stuff.
Now, let's see what the official interpretation of green design is. Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. But to put it simply, sustainability is ultimately the capacity to endure, to withstand the tests of time. Thus, many architects make sustainability or green architecture the main goal of their designs. Lest anyone think green architecture is a new or emerging approach, concepts of being eco-friendly have been around longer than we might imagine. As far back as antiquity, ancient Greeks and Romans were using solar orientation and geothermal heating in their designs. Even certain Native American tribes saved energy by using passive heating and rainwater collection. Not until the 19th century, with the advent of the Industrial Revolution, did environmentalism become an important issue again. The United States declared Yellowstone its first national park in 1872, and organizations like the Sierra Club advocated green policies. Not until the 1950s was air pollution seriously examined, and soon the rise of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was recognized as a big problem. Environmentalism gained wide support in the 70s with the founding of Earth Day and the Environmental Protection Agency. By the 90s, the Energy Star and LEED programs had been established, along with several other pieces of green legislation. Since then, architects worldwide have been working to design the most sustainable buildings possible. Of course, you may be thinking, that was then, but what is the impact of all that history on me and my community today? Former Chicago Mayor Richard M. Daley took major steps to initiate the green movement here. Inspired by what he saw in many European and Asian cities, Mayor Daley began transforming Chicago step by step, by updating construction codes and founding new environmental initiatives. New trees were planted, new fences and planters were installed, and a large number of green roofs were built. But perhaps no project has better defined Daley's effort to legitimize his commitment to establishing Chicago as a leader in the green movement than the construction of Millennium Park. Despite its late arrival, its cost overruns, and the massive cost to the taxpayers of the city, Millennium Park has nevertheless been an unqualified success.
It's hard to believe that the Millennium Park that we are seeing today was once an industrial wasteland, that from the 1850s until 1997 was controlled by the Illinois Central Railroad. Famous architect and urban planner Daniel Burnham, who was the director of works for the World's Columbian Exposition, did not approve of the land and considered it to be untouchable.
With the help of world-renowned architect Frank Gehry, the park became a place filled with a combination of absolutely astonishing architecture, sculpture, and landscape design.
Let's first begin with the J. Pritzker Pavilion. Frank Gehry was the designer of the pavilion. He applied his signature style of deconstructivism, which shows its ability to go beyond current modalities of structural definition. The pavilion stands 120 feet high. To add to its height are the ribbons that frame the stage. The state-of-the-art sound system allows for the beautiful music to fill the ears of the listening audience in either the 4,000 fixed seats or in the lawn, which accommodates an additional 7,000 people.
The Cloud Gate seen here is one of the signature works of art in Millennium Park. The sculpture, which was inspired by liquid mercury, measures 66 feet long and 33 feet high, and was created by British artist Anish Kapoor, and is made up of a highly polished stainless steel plates, which reflect Chicago's famous skyline and the clouds above.
Here we are at the Crown Fountain, designed by Spanish artist Jaume Ponce. The fountain consists of two 50-foot glass block towers, which stand at either end of the shallow reflecting pool. The most thrilling thing about the towers is that they project video images from a broad social spectrum of Chicago citizens. The idea behind the video projection was to give the illusion of water flowing from the mouths of Chicago citizens. The McCormick Tribune Ice Rink and Plaza is a great place for family and friends to enjoy a skate around the rink in winter, or a casual and relaxing dining experience in the summer. The 16,000 square foot ice skating rink offers visitors one of the best views of architecture in Chicago's famous Michigan Avenue.
The Wrigley Square and Millennium Monument, located on the corner of Michigan Avenue and Randolph Street, is one that should not be missed. The square is surrounded by the Millennium Monument that is an aesthetically pleasing semicircular row of Doric-style columns that rise nearly 40 feet high. At the base of the Millennium Monument are the names and founders of Millennium Park.
The BP Bridge, designed by Frank Gehry, not only has a beautiful flowing design, but also serves as a barrier from the traffic noise below. The BP Bridge is 925 feet long and provides a clear view of the city's skyline.
The Nicholas Bridgeway in Millennium Park is the newest addition. It is a 645-foot pedestrian bridge that links the park to the Art Institute of Chicago's Modern Way.
Here we are at the Millennium Park Welcome Center, also known as the Exelon Pavilions. The 4 Exelon Pavilions use state-of-the-art technology to convert solar energy into electricity and are a very important part of Chicago's efforts to become the most environmentally friendly city in North America.
The results of Mayor Daley's work at Millennium Park have been very positive. The former unsightly rail yards were readapted into usable public space, it became a world-class tourist attraction, and the park has received many awards for the other green projects it inspired. The creation of Millennium Park proved that green design was not only good for the environment, but it could be practical, economical, and fun for all citizens. Don't get the impression that Chicago's former mayor has been the only significant player in the city's green successes. Many public and private, commercial and nonprofit, and diverse institutions have continued to play a major role as responsible users and caretakers of our natural resources. We're going to check in now with numerous leaders in their sector of the community to gain their perspective and discover their approaches to becoming a more sustainable urban community in Chicago.
Well, the Chicago Architecture Foundation is trying to encourage people to really take a look at the places they live in and think about how they can use design as an element as a tool really in their own lives to change their own lives and change their own communities. And so by coming here, people can learn about a little bit more about neighborhoods and how neighborhoods can be changed and what they can do in their neighborhoods. They can see right next door our large Chicago model, which has been one of our most popular exhibitions, maybe the most popular ever, where they can really take a look at the city from a bird's eye view and then zoom down and look at different parts and think about how all those parts work together and how we can think about changing them. The Chicago Architecture Foundation is an institution that engages people in learning about their environments, learning about their homes and their neighborhoods, coming together, discussing issues, meeting experts, and by coming here and seeing the LEED ND exhibition, they can learn about how they can take steps in their own neighborhood to become more livable. It is essential for everyone to know about this project, but also architects, designers, government officials. Everyone is going to play their role in making green neighborhoods happen. So it's really important that there's an outreach effort, that people learn about it, understand it, and support it.
My name is Anthony Wood. I'm the Executive Director of the Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat. I'm also an Associate Professor here in the College of Architecture at IIT. I run a tall building studio every year here at IIT, usually set in a different city. So I get funding from a developer based overseas, and we go and spend a week or 10 days studying the site and then designing a hypothetical tall building, or the students design a hypothetical tall building based on a real site. And we go and visit the place and we look to create tall buildings which are inspired by place. And when I say inspired, I don't mean in a wishy-washy kind of way. I mean quite literally, either inspired by something physical, something environmental, or something cultural, and ideally all three. What we're interested in is taking the horizontal city and bringing it vertically, but still representing the city. Any city relies on the ground plane as an essential support layer to what goes on in the city. Parks, sidewalks, all the rest of it. So if we're going to duplicate the city, then we need to recreate the horizontal ground plane up in the sky. I mean, I think most people can get excited about a tall building as an iconic object, and the technological achievements of it, the financial achievements, you know, many things. But the reality is that you know, the world is becoming homogenized, and architecture is one of the worst forces of global homogenization. And tall buildings are probably the worst typology within architecture for the homogenization of cities. So we see a skyline now which may become synonymous with a place, i.e. look at the skyline, that's Shanghai, that's Sydney, but it's not necessarily born of a place. And these, you know, if you look at China or any other country, there are often thousands of years of vernacular tradition and development of vernacular patterns in architecture. But all that was thrown out of the window in 1950s tall building modernism, and now these things are supplanted all around the world without regard for the specifics of place, be it culturally, climatically, or, you know, or on any level.
I am a senior design architect at Adrian Smith and Gordon Gill Architecture. I worked with Adrian Smith and Gordon Gill over at Skidmore, Owings & Merrill for a couple years, and they started their own firm in 2006, and in 2007 I followed them over here. Design philosophy is kind of a multifaceted approach to sustainability being the key, and we work on very large projects, and so we take a very kind of large, big picture view of sustainability, focus on energy reduction and using the right materials. We've been working with the owners of the Willis Tower for the last few years, and the ownership changed hands, and they really wanted to change kind of the feel of that tower and, you know, the day-to-day activity and the amount of energy usage, and look for different clientele that was, you know, more interested in that approach. And so we've been working with them and looking at changing out the glass system as a very outdated glass system, and just taking a series of very small steps, but those add up to become something very great. Started out as an energy master plan, as we called it in our office, and as we began to work with the city more, we began to realize it had further implications. And so we were working on a plan that encompassed, you know, all carbon, and essentially looking at the city as it is today and in the past, and then trying to project forward, where we need to be and kind of keeping with Chicago's 2030 plan and trying to help Chicago get to that. So that project was really about taking stock of what the Loop currently has in terms of its buildings, and a lot of Chicago is vacant, so new construction doesn't really make that much sense. So what can we do to retrofit and make these buildings more energy efficient?
The decarb plan it effectively just provides almost like a framework for how you might want to try to achieve the Architecture 2030 challenge. The Architecture 2030 challenge, it's effectively a way to try to reduce the carbon emissions of globally. It has a 2010 baseline, and the idea is that by 2020 there'll be an 80% reduction against 2010 levels in carbon emissions, and by 2030 the aim is to become carbon neutral. It's a really, really tough challenge. There's no point in having an easy challenge though, is there? So if they don't achieve it, but achieve even half of that, that would be fantastic. This document, Towards Zero Carbon, outlines how you might want to go about doing that, and it has kind of 10 different themes, ranging from looking at the buildings themselves to the infrastructure, how the community can do something about it, how you might want to fund it, perhaps some of the models. I think we talked about the parametric modelling, looking at the city as a whole, and then other aspects, water waste, all of that stuff. And what's kind of interesting is that the building typologies in Chicago are very diverse today. So it's basically looking at all these different ways to reduce the carbon emissions of the city, of the Loop particularly, and help steer us towards achieving the goals of the 2030 challenge.
EcoBridge is a project that Adrian had started when he first opened the firm and was still looking for clientele, and they were looking back at the Burnham plan and realized that so much of it actually has been implemented, but there was always this kind of one thing that stuck out. It's this large arching kind of bridge out into the water into Lake Michigan, kind of encompassing Grant Park, and that part had never been built. And he was thinking about the lakefront and how great it is, and how can you actually expand upon this idea of Chicago's great lakefront. It's a hopeful project, and I think it would be great. It's a land bridge that goes out. The entire length of it is about a mile long, so it would be a very large project. But we've looked at ways to do it sustainably.
And I think that we've gone as far as an architectural practice can go. It's now got to be handed over to somebody to implement.
I'm Cynthia Kleinben. I am the Associate Chancellor for Sustainability at the University of Illinois at Chicago. I run the Office of Sustainability here on campus. I'm most proud of the fact that we have a climate action plan, and that we've made a concerted attempt to move forward on a lot of those, almost everything in there. We're working very hard on energy efficiency. It's just it's the win-win. You benefit from the financial side, you benefit environmentally, and often as well, let's at least say comfort in the buildings. We've reduced our energy consumption by 15% in the last 6 years, and we've grown 11%. So I think that's pretty good, and we're only getting started. So yeah, I guess that's our main thing, and I'm glad that we have used some renewable energy on campus, even though it doesn't have that payback right away. But we can show the solar. We have solar panels on the building I described, Lincoln Hall, as well as Douglas Hall, that's almost complete, and we have the geothermal heating and cooling systems for those buildings. Our actual goal is to reduce our greenhouse gases by more than 80% by 2050 from our 2004 levels, with ultimately becoming carbon neutral. That was recognizing that there will still probably be activities that generate greenhouse gases in that time frame, especially because we are a research institution.
I'm Karen Kelmick, and I'm the founder of Green Home Chicago Design Center. The goal is to offer services and products for everyone. We have 2 LEED certified designers on staff, but the environment is very casual. You can just come in here, you can buy a gallon of paint, or you can work with us on a whole design of a home. Or we're doing commercial projects as well. Usually there is an architect and designer already involved, but then we source product for them. The business is really an experiment in social entrepreneurship. And what that means is that we have several goals and visions. And I think that this whole green movement needs to create jobs, and to create jobs in Chicago because there are so very few. And the last thing that we do is supporting community. So we support community through some of the products we have. They come from poverty alleviation groups, or like for example, this coming Thursday, there's a group that supports women in Rwanda that's having a fundraiser, so we donate our space a lot for those kinds of events. So it's not just selling widgets. We want to use this as a momentum to do other things. You know, our approach is customer service, really. Since we are bricks and mortar, we have to capitalize on what that means. And what that means for me is human contact, not using our thumbs. And we really get to understand what our clients are looking for and get them what they need. And you know, there's no, I say this all the time, we're not the green police. Everybody does what they can. In addition to that, you've got to look at, I mean, green for me means a lot of things. It can be upcycling or reusing something that you have. It's education. So using a chair that you have and recovering it, for example, is, in my opinion, much greener than buying a new one because of all the energy in making a new one. I think the other thing is talking about green and pricing is that you've got to look at the longevity of what you're purchasing. So if you buy something and it may be a little bit more expensive, but you know that you're going to keep it for 20 years. I think that generally as consumers in America, and I'm guilty too, we go for the bargain and hope to churn it over in a much shorter period of time. I think the education that needs to happen is to buy quality and to buy something that you can live with or use for an extended period of time. We've just been very spoiled, is the truth. You know, we just thought that energy was limitless. And now we're sort of having to hit reality like the rest of the world.
Sustainability is really important at Perkins & Will.
We signed the 2030 challenge. It's 2030 challenge, I think. So we have a platinum office space. So I mean, that's to us. LEED is just we want to go beyond LEED. LEED is great, and but we're now doing firm-wide. We're doing a number of regenerative buildings. Where the building will actually, beyond even zero carbon, the building will actually give energy back to the environment. In our firm, we have every office has a green committee, sustainable committee. Mostly of the younger architects with some experienced architects, and we have 22 offices. They all there 2 times a year. All the people on the green committee from each office get together and exchange ideas. So it's very much a part of our what we believe in.
One of the misnomers is that people think that that design, good design, isn't part of a green solution. It absolutely is. Nobody wants to sustain ugly. I'm Mogan Smat. I'm the founder of Dirt Environmental Solutions. You know, things like solar technology are much closer to becoming reality than people realize. Ground source heating, even passive solar, and how we build our homes and how we orient our homes. These are all things that will contribute. You are young people. I have young kids too. And how are you going to afford a house that's 2,000 square feet at $300 a square foot, especially if it costs you $300 or $400 a month to operate it? We need to build something that has architectural integrity and design integrity. We have to have something that absolutely responds to the environment from an energy consumption point of view and from a pollution point of view. We have to have something that responds to lifestyles. It's a shame, a big city like Chicago, the great thing about Chicago, if you live downtown, we can walk everywhere. But unfortunately, most of the people live out in the suburbs, and they drive their car in every single day, or some of them at least take the train. But we don't have a infrastructure that really lends itself well to a real sustainable solution. It's all coming at us. Cost of electricity, cost of heating and cooling, all of those things are coming at us. You know what? It's not there yet, but it's building.
My name is Doug Widener. I'm the Executive Director of the U.S. Green Building Council Illinois chapter. We're a 501c3 not-for-profit organization with a mission to transform our region's buildings, schools, homes, and communities to be sustainable, profitable, and healthy. At USGBC Illinois, we work around the state. We offer over 150 education programs, green building tours, events. We do research on green buildings. We work really closely with local governments and state governments on transforming their policies and procedures to incentivize green building at the residential, commercial, and community level. We're a very grassroots organization. We have a very small staff, and we accomplish our work through dedicated volunteers who work around the state, helping us implement our mission. U.S. Green Building Council, a few years back, started a new rating system going beyond the building-by-building approach to entire communities, and that rating system is called LEED for Neighborhood Development. It's a collaboration between the U.S. Green Building Council, the Natural Resources Defense Council, and the Congress for the New Urbanism. And it looks at taking sustainability to the neighborhood scale. And Chicago had two pilot projects in the pilot round of that, Block 37 downtown, and the South Chicago Works project, which is the old U.S. Steel site on the very far southeast side of the city. So again, the city really wanted to be one of the first to really try out that new rating system that's looking at going beyond the building-by-building approach to entire communities. Once a building is constructed and USGBC verifies and GBCI verifies that it meets the LEED standard, you're in the certification. But LEED for existing buildings is based on ongoing performance, and so that system requires you to recertify at least every 5 years, and you can certify as often as every 1 year. But there's another important piece of LEED too, and it's one thing that I think a lot of people don't understand, is that most of the LEED rating systems were focused on building design and building construction. And so those rating systems verify that a building is designed in a sustainable way and built in a sustainable way. But a building's sustainable journey really starts once the building is open, you have tenants or occupants in the building, and you're actually utilizing the building. So the important thing is that earning a LEED certification and a LEED plaque for new construction doesn't mean that you're done with the sustainable journey. If you have your plaque ceremony, cut your ribbon, and then forget about managing energy, managing water, don't utilize the systems that are in place, don't work with tenants on waste reduction, don't follow green cleaning practices, how sustainable is that building over its life cycle? Probably not as sustainable as it was intended to be. That's why systems like LEED for existing buildings are important to help building owners, managers, and tenants adapt sustainable practices on a day in, day out, year in, year out basis.
I'm PepsiCo's Director of Sustainability for the beverage businesses in North America. Well, let me tell you what we're doing in this office building. We're located in the West Loop area of Chicago, and there's 17 stories. We lease this building, and we're responsible for everything that happens here. And so one of the things we have done is create a green team that just members of our staff who are focused on sustainability and doing it kind of in their free time. One of the most important things that we've done at PepsiCo is measure our sustainability footprint for a product. And when you do that, you're really measuring from the time raw materials are grown and oil is extracted from the ground to the time a consumer decides, hey, I've finished using this beverage, what do I do with the container? And you look at everything in between. And the reason you do that is because it tells you where in the system the biggest impacts are. And you can do a footprint around carbon, which is basically energy used today, or you can do a footprint around water, or 100 other things. But it's how do we conserve water and energy in our factories? How do we make sure our transportation and fleet are responsible users of fuel? How do we make sure that we're using as much renewable energy in our businesses as possible? What do we do to help consumers recycle bottles and cans and beverages that we put out onto the market? How do we measure our impact? So our life cycle footprint of a product like Tropicana or a carbonated beverage like Pepsi or Diet Pepsi or Mountain Dew. So anything you could imagine, if it's related to environmental sustainability, I'm responsible for making sure PepsiCo does the right thing. So what we're trying to do is find locations around the country where it makes sense economically to install renewable energy so we can reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. We're doing a number of projects in Arizona. We have factories there. And what we've done is put both photovoltaic panels, so to generate electricity on our rooftop, and solar thermal panels, which directly heat water that we use in pasteurization to make Gatorade. So we're doing things like that. We're also using landfill gas next to our Fort Pierce Tropicana plant in Florida. And that's where you use natural gas generated by decaying waste in the landfill. And instead of letting that escape or burning it or flaring it, we pipe it into our facilities. We clean it up because it's not as clean as regular natural gas. And we burn it. And people consider landfill gas to be carbon neutral because it's in a very short life cycle. It's not a fossil fuel. So those are a couple of the renewable energies. Also in the Sustainability Center in Chicago, on our rooftop, we've got wind turbines. They're a vertical helix style wind turbine, and they help power the center that we're in today, as well as solar panels that are complementary to that. So that's renewable energy initiatives. And to date, we have saved 15 to 20% of the electricity that this building uses and a similar amount of water. It's been remarkable because it's been volunteers saying, let's create initiatives around recycling. Recycling rates have improved by 30 to 40% since we started a few years ago. And again, let's save energy. They have actually saved over $200,000 a year in energy costs alone just by doing things in this building.
So I am the Director of Faith and Place. We work with over 700 congregations on environmental practices, connecting those practices to the teachings of faith. So one of the things that Faith and Place does is help congregations that haven't gotten started on greening get started. Last year we had a design and ideas competition to see in a couple of categories who could come up with some really creative ideas. And the first thing that we tell folks is start by connecting environmental practices to the teachings of your faith. We do recommend that you start with energy conservation, high impact, low conflict. And high impact and low conflict is good for the church. Connect the environment to everything. Don't let it be its little silo. Let it infiltrate the whole congregation. And step into the policy arena. Once you've made changes in your own building to your satisfaction, we do ask you to keep going into the arena of policy advocacy because that is actually where we're going to get to sufficient scale.
I think the thing that's unique about it is a lot of these aspects of this home you can acquire today, you know, and I think a lot of people kind of think, well, this is more of an exhibit piece, and it's much more visceral than that, in the sense that you can embrace a lot of the functions of this just by doing a little diligence in sourcing materials, and that's the beauty of what they're offering here is the guidebook they give you. They source all the locations of all the items. So after you leave here, you can go home and you can choose and call them, and you can build your own home using the same parts that were assembled here. The most prominent feature of this house is the hardwood facade, and that is the assembly as such is a long-standing tradition of architecture in Europe that's slowly progressing its way. Obviously, it's a modern aesthetic, but that rain screen facade affords a breathability to the structure. It makes the home much more efficient in a northern climate, because it can shed moisture in a much readily way than a traditional assembly. So as a consequence, the house dries out faster, it breathes better, it has more long-term sustainability than a home that is of the traditional assembly. So as a consequence, it's a very practical style for a four-season climate. It would certainly get a LEED status. It has radiant. It also has solar voltaic. It's got a rain screen perimeter, facade. I would suspect it would certainly merit a LEED. But once you kind of step into it and get the whole concept of it, it has a certain synergy to it that you want to embrace the whole style. It's what's new and what's innovative, and that isn't always what's most embraced. it's a little daunting, and maybe the unknown is kind of kept people back a little bit. And I don't think they're aware of how accessible the materials and the methodology are to the everyman, as it were. And certainly you want to source it through an architect and a designer, but they're not out of the realm of possibility and affordability.
As in almost every case, there are two sides to every issue, and often the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
About what?
Sorry.
Deed
certification? Not a clue.
Yeah, but I don't know what it means. I have absolutely no idea.
I don't know what LEED certification is. LEED, nothing. Nothing at all.
Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, or LEED, has been a point of controversy for many people. LEED has several divisions, some of which include new construction, healthcare, existing buildings, and neighborhood development. Iconic architect Frank Gehry was criticized for his comments regarding LEED, having said that he disliked the program for its certification process and its political aims. However, his statements may have been misconstrued. Along with Gehry, many architects find the LEED requirements to be too restrictive for good design. On the other hand, LEED is sometimes thought to have ironic side effects. For example, the existence of a LEED-rated parking garage in Chicago has been attacked by naysayers. Despite its energy-efficient features, a new garage that draws in gas-guzzling cars may seem counterintuitive. The Greenway South Park has vertical wind turbines, a green roof, and locally obtained construction materials. But by encouraging people to drive to the city, is it really helping the environment? Here are a few areas of concern voiced by some of our experts in each sector of the community.
I think what LEED does very well is that it offers you a very practical checklist of things you can do to make a building more sustainable. And as such, it's really creating some more awareness of the effects of what you're doing and what you can actually do to make a building environmentally more sustainable. There are very practical ways to save on energy, and there's very good ways how you can create energy by using the scale and the mass of the building.
It's good to have those guidelines developed, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you're building a building and trying to figure out the best way to do it.
I think LEED is somewhat seen by some as being somewhat cumbersome because it is so much of a checklist, and that people think that the focus is lost on what they're actually trying to achieve, which is something that is sustainable. And people think that that can be lost. And I think there is some growth, some enhancement that it could use, and I think it's going to come. I think it's kind of in its infancy, but I think it's a great stepping stone.
The designers don't have to design to a checklist. You design a building to be a high-performing building, whether it's in terms of energy, water, construction, waste generation, CO2 emissions, whatever, and you design it to the best of your ability.
On the other hand, LEED also had a tendency to be some kind of an award system for people that, might not think very sustainable. It's more like, I always like to compare it with smoking light cigarettes compared to cigarettes. I mean, you think you're doing something very good, but sometimes they say that the most sustainable building is the building that's never going to be built because it doesn't use anything. But I think the overall profit gain is that it really makes people more aware of what they're doing and how they can make buildings more sustainable.
LEED is a mediocre standard.
I was just going to ask, what's your opinion on LEED?
Well, it's not an environmental solution. Any solution that ignores the footprint, the size of the space. Remember, there's a LEED Platinum home in Mumbai for one family that's 235,000 square feet. Anyone that doesn't understand the fundamentals that there's a direct link between the footprint and the carbon footprint just doesn't get it.
It's easy to be critical of LEED because it's just a checklist, but I don't think you should be. It has driven a lot of change in the building industry.
So I think LEED is more than just a plaque. I think LEED more is just checking boxes. And LEED is always trying to push the envelope. If you look back to the history of LEED, every few years LEED gets updated so that as the market catches up, LEED is going to the next level of sustainability. So the whole goal is that LEED is always trying to move the bar forward, but we also need to create a system that the market can embrace and utilize. And so there's always like this kind of trade-off between having a system that works, that's on the cutting edge, but also that doesn't exclude people from actually getting on the sustainable path.
Chicago still faces many challenges to get where it wants to be and where it needs to be. The city remains clogged with traffic throughout the day, public transportation still requires upgrading, and various blighted neighborhoods lack safe buildings, let alone sustainable buildings. How do our experts view Chicago's challenges to become a truly sustainable city? What lies ahead for the future of green technology and sustainable design?
Chicago has been a leader in architecture for a long time. We're one of the world-class city when it comes to architecture. And so it's no surprise that Chicago is also leading the way when it comes to sustainable design as well. We have many things to be proud of and that are leading the way nationally and globally in sustainable design.
I think Chicago is one of the most brilliant cities when it comes to tall buildings. When you see here in the city center, that's over 100 years of tall building architecture. And what I like about this whole museum of tall buildings is that every building has a story.
We have more LEED certified buildings and projects than any other city in the world. Everything from school buildings to firehouses to individual residences to big multi-tenant commercial office buildings, hospitals, you name it. Chicago and the region really represents really the potential of green building, not just from one building type, but a broad swath of building types.
And what you see happening now is that the message of this day and age, it's very much about sustainability, because we look at the building now asking not only what does it give us, but also how can the building contribute to the city? What does it give back to us in order to, when it comes to creating energy, giving energy, and what does the building do for the city? I think those are the bigger questions that are now being incorporated into both tall buildings and sustainability.
Chicago has a long ways to go. What this is going to take for a sustainable society is going to take a lot of innovation. It's going to take a lot of change. It's going to take a lot of change in our behaviors, both as people that implement it and people that use it.
Almost everything about becoming sustainable is turning on its head the way that we have lived and been told to live for decades. So it's going to be a big effort, and it's certainly worth the effort, and it's something that we all can do. But it is really changing how people think and how people live.
As you've just heard, though there are still many challenges that lie ahead of us to design and build a healthier place to live, the future looks promising. As average consumers learn more about sustainability, they will be able to place greater demands upon the industry, which will benefit everyone involved. I'm Kim with Chicago Architecture Today, and thank you for letting us show you sustainable Chicago.